Good evening, hail, hail, and welcome along. Gav's taking a piss. Hail, hail, and welcome along to the latest edition of the Endless Celts Podcast. It's the weekend. Happy Friday. Thank you for spending your Friday with us. We're going to tackle all recent topics. Celtic, as usual, although I say recent topics, it's been the same topics that's been ongoing for the whole transfer window pretty much, but we'll tackle it as best we can. And I'm glad to be joined by the regular contributors. Gavin, how we doing, mate? How's your week been?
Good, mate. Good. Just another week. Typical summer this week. This way is going. It's just shite weather. Sometimes you get good days, and then you get about 5 bad days following on. No plans for the weekend either. I've got the baby, so see what we can do. But obviously we've got Celtic on Sunday, so looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And Ross, how are you, mate? How's your week been?
Aye, it's been no bad, mate. Standard week. The week before that, I'd been working mental hours to get an outside done. Just obviously, Gavin talking about the weather there. I got the weather for it, but I had a wee day off the day. I was supposed to be spending it with the Wayne, but she ended up staying at her pals. So I've had a bit of a freebie all day, but I spent it being a good husband and cleaning the house.
Ideal.
You're going to say something else there.
3 weekends. I've been back 2 minutes and I've got all the Lowell comments already. That's fucking
I see it.
Before we get tucked in, here's just a wee preview about what the topics are and what we're going to be talking about tonight. So there we go. The Celtic are back. We've had our first game of the season, and yet we've still got a bit of dismay about our transfer window, and rightfully so in a lot of aspects. But do you see, just before we actually jump right into the whole window, and I know we've kind of been talking about this for a wee while now, it's kind of dragging on, but it's the same. It's the same stories each week, and as each week goes on, more and more people start to, get a bit more nervous that we've not got anybody in the door. But Gavin, how are you feeling about it at this moment now? Are you still quite relaxed and think, well, because I don't know if you've seen Brendan's presser today, but to me, he seemed very, very relaxed. It wasn't like, the issues we had in his first tenure where he kind of, during the window, he was showing his frustrations. He seemed quite relaxed and he was kind of talking about how it needs to be the right player in. And I know it seemed to me he didn't want another window like last year, whereas we've got the likes of Lager Bielka and the likes of Home and stuff that he obviously doesn't fancy and doesn't think is good enough to be in our first 11 or push for our first 11. So he seemed pretty relaxed. How are you feeling about it?
I think Brendan Rodgers has probably given up in making it public his kind of his feelings on the progress or the lack of progress so far of this transfer window. I think we know exactly what he thinks, and I think he's probably getting fed up with questions being asked about it. I don't blame him for that. For me, I said it last week. I've got a feeling of apathy. I think at the start of the window, you've got this optimism. It's what a football fan goes through every summer. You're looking forward to what the transfer window will bring, and then as the weeks go on, you become frustrated. You go through that roller coaster of emotions almost. And at this point now, I kind of feel apathy. You know, like I've given up with frustration. I'm no longer pissed off. I'm no longer annoyed. I'm just like, what will be, because the board have got a track record of inactivity or a day late and a dollar short in these transfer windows. This is not an isolation. It's a growing trend. So I'm no longer filled with negativity. What will be. Hopefully, we'll have something to shout about. I'm still holding out optimism for the end of the transfer market. I think we probably will get Idah. I think we'll probably get a couple more. But you want to get your business done earlier than this, and whenever you're going away on tour in America, you want to start building those relationships. You want to have the players spending time with the coaches, to kind of drill in what's expected of them with the playing style. You don't want to wait until a couple of weeks after competitive football's already kicked off before you've got your full squad. But I think that's the reality of how Celtic do their business. It's kind of like we wait until the January sales before we do our serious buying. I think that's the kind of the equivalent. You wait until the end of the transfer window, whenever better caliber clubs than us are already kind of settled for their squads, and then the players on the periphery know that they're surplus to requirements, and then their agent can say, okay, let's try and get you a move. We've waited, now we know that we're no longer wanted here. And I think that's a kind of the domain that Celtic are shopping in. So there's no negativity. It is what it is, but I'm still holding out a bit of optimism. We'll see what it brings. It's not done yet, but football's already kicked off. It's those Champions League games that are going to be starting soon, and the later we leave it, the more adverse it is for us.
Yeah, absolutely agree with lots of the points there. It's a fair point about getting them in and integrated. I think Kuhn's a perfect example of that. He had however many months, and we're only starting to see the fruits of his labour now. So even the whole squad as a whole, I think we're a different team today than we were last season. Even though effectively we're weaker in the sense that we've not got Idah or backup for Taylor as a squad as a whole, but as the way the team's playing and as an 11, I think we're far stronger than we were last season or even the start of the season. But yeah, it's fair points made. Ross, what about you? How are you feeling about it? Do you think? To me, there's obviously a lot. I've seen the scene a lot in social media where there's a lot of people that are very unhappy, and like I said, it's probably rightfully so. I'm a bit more relaxed about it myself, but is that because I think we should obviously definitely have signings in the door already, but like we all understand that sometimes it's not as easy as just going out and grabbing somebody. But I was trying to think about it today, and I'm thinking, am I more relaxed just because of that? Because Rodgers' side is playing, it's a different side to what it was last year because we've kind of grasped his way of playing, and also because like our rivals on the other side of the city are a far cry from what they were or what they were looking to be pushing us. Is that why we're sort of a bit more relaxed? What's your thoughts on how you feeling on the Monday as a whole at the moment?
But I think the 2 points you've raised there are viable ones. I think it maybe adds to why you're more relaxed. I have to say, I've been, I don't know if relaxed is the right word. For the season ended, I've said to myself that it was probably going to be the same as previous windows, where everybody would be up in arms about signings not getting made. The level of player that people wanted probably wouldn't be coming in. It turns out so far that not even the level of player, there's just no player has come in. And listen, Gavin made a lot of great points that I agree with. I'm at that stage where I wouldn't say I'm relaxed. I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I'm not even in between. I'm actually at the stage where I don't really feel much. I just want Celtic to do some business. I believe that they will do some business. Like Gavin, I think he makes a brilliant point in that we are shopping in that market. It would seem just now, sort of guys who are on the periphery squads, but you're waiting to near the end of the window when the teams their way are more settled. I think that's bang on. And I think that when you're being linked to guys like Jeffrey Schlupp, I think that pays testament to that point. For me, you read a lot of stuff. You see a lot of Celtic supporters saying that the board are no interested in spending money. Then they're not doing anything. They're sitting in their hands. For me, I don't believe that they are sitting in their hands. I think at the moment, because obviously they had the sort of recruitment team in place with Mark Lowell, and then obviously guys off of him, under him, however you want to say it, and he's left, and there's other guys left, and I think the recruitment team at the moment is in a bit of transition, and I think that's why at the end of this window, I think you'll notice that we've probably leaned on the manager's phone book contacts a bit more than we would like to. I think through time, once the recruitment team gets more settled and in place, I think you'll maybe see more of a balance. You'll be able to see which guys are sort of for Rodgers' phone book and guys that we've properly scouted. I think for this window, it's going to be, for the most part, Rodgers' phone book. And that's not a bad thing. It's not perfect, but Rodgers has got some good contacts. He's signed guys out his phone book before that worked well, and Scott Sinclair. Listen, he signed Toure. It probably wasn't a fantastic signing, but when he first came in, it was that bit of experience. I think if Jeffrey Sloop came in, that he would add that. But I'm at the stage now where I do think we'll get signings in, but I don't think there'll be guys that were scouted and we've sort of been chasing them for a while. I think it'll be guys at the tail end of the window, like Gavin says. But if they come in and they're guys who are experienced, guys who have maybe got Premier League experience, and they come in and they fill in the positions that we want filled in, i.e. we need more depth at left back. I feel like we need another centre back, because Rodgers, for all the world, you have to say, doesn't he fancy Lagerbielke? I think it's almost time up for Navroki. He's just been very unlucky with injuries. So I think that, the positions, as I say, left back, centre back, and certainly a striker are the ones where we need more depth. If at the end of the window we fill the three places, and it's guys, as I say, who have got maybe that bit of Premier League experience or have played under Rodgers before and he knows the man, knows the player, then I think, without the benefit of hindsight, you could say that it might be a successful window. It's not maybe the 6-7 players equality that we probably wanted at the start of the window, but if we fill in the ones where we need more depth, then it could still be a good window for us. Rodgers was talking today, talking about he's still hopeful. You mentioned it earlier there, Willie. I didn't read it that he was sort of relaxed. I thought he was just hopeful. I don't think he really knows what's happening. I think maybe he's hoping that the board or the recruitment, whoever's in there, comes up with something. But at the same time, if push comes to shove, he'll do what he done with Kasper Schmeichel and say, right, I've got this guy, this guy, this guy I can speak to and get them in. And I think that's what it'll end up being. But as I say, I'll reiterate it again. If we get the left back position filled, maybe another centre back, and we'll see other guys going out, and a striker. If we get the three positions filled at this point, I'll be a happy man, because if the window closes and we don't, then as much as I agree with you, I do think that the squad, in terms of numbers at the moment, it is not what it was this time last season or at the end of last season, but they're a year down the line, a year under Brendan Rodgers, and they're a far better football team than they were this time last year. And if we're judging it about Champions League football, then we're at that stage of the season heading up towards that. And we're a better team now than we were last season, albeit we've maybe got less numbers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, mate. I can totally understand people's frustrations, because I myself, I don't really get too frustrated. But I've been starting to get slightly frustrated myself. And Gavin, like I kind of put to Ross there, do you think because the state our rivals are in and the kind of position we're in at the moment, it's kind of making us all feel a bit more, I don't know if relaxed is the right term, but a bit more subdued about the situation? Do you think if we were going into it and had the same sort of start to the league season that we had last season, that you think that would be affording the board and whoever else, the recruitment team, more time? Do you think? And do you think they would have acted how they have acted in this window if we were not as strong, we didn't have as strong a pre-season, or the squad didn't look as strong as it was at this moment in time, i.e. the start that we had to last season?
Potentially so. It shouldn't be that way, because whenever you go into the interim period in the summer, you should have a plan in place, and it shouldn't be affected by how pre-season goes. It shouldn't be affected by how your closest rivals are faring. Certainly the fans' pessimism, optimism, expectations, that can be tempered by those external factors. But in terms of what the club do, in terms of recruitment, that should not be affected by what happens in the summer at all. It's kind of funny whenever you say that, because the Huns were playing that team in Europe, and it looked as if they were going to struggle getting through. This is the Champions League qualifier, and obviously the massive consequence of that is how much money does our closest rivals get, and that has people on tenterhooks in terms of if they do get to the Champions League, then people on here might not be willing to admit to it. But if Rangers do get through to the Champions League, then we will be aware of the potential of what they can do with that money, whether it goes to serve as debt or whether they continue to mismanage and actually buy, speculate to accumulate. We will have our eye on that as fans, and that plays into our kind of fears, if you want. So with that game, it looked as if they were down and out for the first leg at least, but of course they get that equaliser right at the death. So that kind of puts things on an edge. So there is although we are there's a lot of hilarity, a lot of banter about the fact that they are down and out as such. You can't write them off. It's just it's stranger than fiction sometimes, the way that they fare in Europe. And if they do get into the Champions League, God forbid, but if they do, then they're going to have some money in their pockets. And you hear a lot of people trope out this line online, I think. You hear it as they spend money better than what we would spend money on, because we know how frugal our board are. But there is that kind of fear that if Rangers had that money, then they would actually just go for the jugular and try to strengthen their squad, even if it's not balanced in the books. So yeah, I don't think it's right that the board take action depending on pre-season and how Rangers are doing. But stranger things have happened. You wouldn't write it off, but I don't think that our inactivity is based on what's happened so far in the past month and a half.
Yeah, that's good points. But see, I'll just come right back as well. Gavin, Ross was saying there about sort of Brendan's phone book as such. I know there's rumours about Sloop have came through this afternoon. How do you think we are going to fare? It looks like we're going to touch on Idah as well later on. It's looking likely that we're going back in for him and that he might come in. If it was another couple of players as a stopgap, for lack of a better term, that are like a Sloop or somebody out of Rodgers' phone book, and by the end of the transfer window we got Idah and maybe a couple of these players to kind of, would you be happy with that window?
Happy with, depending on Rodgers to bring in the players because our scouting department is so inept?
Well, that and the fact that Rodgers has been talking since 6 months ago and saying that we need to get quality in this window, and it looks like we've not done so far. And then, because I'm still now in my mind, I'm expecting us to go out and get Idah and still get another couple of players of quality. I think for me, if we went out and we'd got Idah and then we got the likes of Sloop to cover at left back, and another old Brendan player to come and cover, I would be really, really disappointed in the window.
Yeah. I think if that happened, I would back people protesting and not throwing sharks or throwing rails, but like kind of peaceful protests. I would back that. I would totally understand the fury with fans, although I would personally not want to lend myself to such negativity. I don't think it does anything to benefit my well-being to feel that bad about things. But Yeah, if it does come to that, then I think people are entitled to be raging and to make displays, to show the board, to demonstrate that is not good enough for us. We're in a brilliant position right now financially. I don't think we've ever been as strong as what we are right now, and we're not pulling the trigger. How difficult is it? Really, how difficult is it? I think I'm almost grateful for the fact of the kind of sliding doors moment. If you think of if Maresca came the manager of Celtic last year, and if we were in a position right now, would we trust Maresca to be looking at his phone book from his meager experience as a manager? Would we be able to rely on someone like him to bail us out? And right now, Brendan Rodgers is bailing us out with Kasper Schmeichel and very likely Adam Idah. It was him who knew Adam Idah beforehand. And probably Jeffrey Schlupp as well. I'm sure that's a Brendan Rodgers contact. It's not somebody who's been identified by the scouting department. So Brendan Rodgers bailed us out last season whenever we could have lost the league. It was him who guided us through those choppy waters, and it's him who's guiding us through this transfer window right now, because the scouting department, we don't have a head of recruitment. It's like, have you ever been, whenever you were younger at work and the manager's off, there's nobody in to watch you, and you're just being a daft wee cunt, and you're just not doing any work. And then as soon as somebody comes in, a manager, then you start to look busy. I'm sure it's not like that, but you can get that kind of comical vision of the scouting department behaving in that way until somebody comes in and says, right, this is what we're doing, this is the plan. It looks like we're rudderless in that department, and Brendan Rodgers is bailing us out. So if we bring in Adam Idah to help us with a centre forward, albeit we still need a third player, maybe Maida can double up on that. But again, we're brushing over the problem there. If Jeffrey Schlupp comes in, who can be a utility player and play left back to give Taylor competition, okay, but that's not good enough. We still need a centre back. Matt O'Reilly will probably leave. 90% certain, I'm sure Matt O'Reilly will leave, and we can't settle for mediocrity with that. We probably can't buy somebody of Matt O'Reilly's class. In fact, scrap the word probably, we cannot. But we need to at least buy somebody of Matt O'Reilly's class whenever we bought him. Maybe a young player and an experienced player like what's the guy? Lennon Miller, is that his name? That the
Motherwell boy.
Yeah, I would definitely buy him for the future, because I think we need a plan for Calum McGregor getting older. And I think with the lack of recruitment coming through, or lack of youth coming through from Lennoxtown, we need to, if we're not bringing through our own Scottish talent, we need to be stealing off other teams. That's what we do. That's what we can do. So if Matt O'Reilly goes, we need to bring in him as a young prospect, and also somebody with more experience. That's what we should do. Diversify our options, because you can't lose Matt O'Reilly and bring in somebody who's going to just fill that void without too much problems. There will be teething issues. So if we get some options with two players for that position, I'll be happy with. But look, I'm still holding out optimism, but the way things are going right now, if we just get Adam Idah, if we just get Jeffrey Schlupp, no, that's as I said earlier on, a day late and a dollar short, and I would expect protests.
Yeah, fair points, Ross. Just a similar question to yourself. Would you be happy if it was, like, in your words, in Brendan's phone book, they're the guys that are effectively a stopgap, and if we are going to do something like that, where it's just sort of to fill out the depth, which is obviously what we don't want. We want quality to come in. But if it is, are we not better going, doing that sort of loan to buy route? If that's the case, rather than going for these guys, I know, like, the argument would probably be that Brendan knows them inside out and they've got experience, but just sort of for the future of the club, we're no better looking down that route. And how do you feel about it? Do you think that's going to be the case? Do you think we're going to be left disappointed in the window, or do you feel like we're still? I know you said you definitely think that we're working behind the scenes. You don't think that there's no work going on. You think that we're going to hopefully close 2 or 3 players of quality that we're looking for?
Well, that's the hope. Of course it is. If it is the Rodgers phone book, as we're calling it tonight, you look at it, Gavin alluded to it there on Adam Idah. That's a Rodgers signing. Rodgers knew about him. But if we get him in at 6 million with 2 million add-ons, I think that's a big outlay. Albeit it was there last season, but he's proven that he can do the job for Celtic. He can score goals. So for me, that would be a big signing. It would be a statement of intent. If we got Jeffrey Schlupp, I don't know what capacity he would come in at. Listen, he can play a number of different positions. Whether he would be brought in predominantly as a left back to challenge Greg Taylor, I would hope that would be the case. I would hope that would be his main position out of all the positions that he can play. Whether it is, I don't know. At 31, you talk about stopgaps there, Willie. Listen, I think Kasper Schmeichel is a really good signing. A bit of a stopgap given his age. At 31, Jeffrey Schlupp, I would be loath to say stopgap because, as I've said, I've seen him in the Premier League, but I haven't seen him in the recent past to really give an informed opinion on him. But I mean, Rodgers' phone book again. It's not going to be full of guys who are stopgaps and maybe guys that are going to come in at plus 30 and just maybe fill in for a season or two to bulk out the squad. If push comes to shove and Rodgers has got a contact, he can get a guy of a Scott Sinclair level, for instance. Listen, I know that's difficult again to do. Scott Sinclair, I think he was surplus to requirements at Aston Villa maybe when we got him, if I remember rightly. But even guys who have maybe kind of been a decent Premier League player, lost their way like Scott Sinclair did, and are needing to reinvigorate themselves, guys like that could be perfect for us, and they won't be stopgaps for me. It's difficult to say. Listen, if guys did come in and they were stopgaps, I'd be very disappointed. But if we got guys in who could impact on the team like Adam Idah has, like Scott Sinclair did in the past, I know he was a very, very good player, but it would be highly unlikely or really difficult to get a player that can come in at this stage and have the level of impact that he did. But he came in quite late in the window as well, if I remember rightly. I think he came in just before the first game of the season. I know we're a wee bit past that now, but I still hold hope that we can get in the quality that Rodgers wants, the quality that most fans want, who are realistic, and I think most fans are realistic. But again, time will tell. If, as I said already, if we get a left back, a centre back, a decent quality, and Adam Idah, I'll be fairly happy with that window, because for me, I think at the start of the window we needed 6 or 7 players. But me myself, I don't know about everybody else, but me myself, I never felt at any stage that we would get all of the players in the quality that Rodgers wants. I think it's difficult to do that in one window, that amount of players. I think that's difficult. Listen, it's not impossible, but we're talking about Celtic here. It's nigh on impossible, but it is difficult to do. If we got the 3 in, I did say previously that I'd be happy with that, but I was forgetting, and Gavin highlighted it. If we lost Matt O'Reilly, then we would need to really do some business in that area of the pitch as well. And I think if Celtic do sell Matt O'Reilly and they don't address that area after that, then it's a dereliction of duty. Is that the word? Dereliction? Yeah.
Good.
I'm confident with that. Right. Aye.
Can I just build on that, Willie? I'm sorry if you were...
No, not at all.
Just because we've talked about Schlupp for a fair bit, my brother-in-law is actually a season ticket holder for Crystal Palace, and I texted him earlier on just to kind of get the lowdown. He said that he's a really good utility player. In a 4-3-3, he can play either left midfield or left forward. He hasn't really played at left back for them much, but it fills in if someone goes off injured, and he works pretty hard too. So I think we all appreciate a hard worker, and the fact that he sounds like a utility player. Another thing is that even though he's only 31, I think we're guilty of underestimating how good an average athlete is in the EPL. For example, Greg Taylor, he's not an athlete. Palmer, definitely not an athlete. I think Schlupp, who's just kind of an average athlete in EPL, he'd probably show these guys up for his athleticism. And I think that we could do with a bit of athleticism in the team. I don't know what the arrangement's going to be. It's just a rumour right now. Could be a loan, could be a buy option, it could be a stopgap, as Ross said. But either way, if we're not going to shell out good money for perhaps a left back, it might just be, a cheap option for competition. It probably doesn't hurt the squad bringing in somebody of his experience, his calibre.
Fair enough. And just touching on, Ross, you kind of touched on Scott Sinclair, and if Riley goes there, and Stephen Ray's made a comment. Thanks for commenting, Stephen, mate. Says, see what you think of this one. If Riley goes, I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers tries to get out of contract Dele Alli at 28. Tried to sign him at Liverpool. Ali spoke about it recently. He could be the latest Sinclair revival. What do you think of
that? It's a tough one. I think that he is probably... Scott Sinclair was going through a tough time in terms of football. I don't know what it was like off the field. Obviously, Dele Alli's had a lot of stuff off the field. I think... Listen, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Rodgers could reinvigorate him, but I think Dele Alli, in terms of mentally, I don't know how he is now, but obviously you've seen that interview. I think it was maybe about a year ago now. Mentally, I don't know how he is. Physically, he's definitely still a way off. He hasn't played football for a long, long period of time, whereas Scott Sinclair, albeit he wasn't playing football first team, he was still obviously keeping himself fit. I don't know what Dele Alli's position's like, but if we got a Dele Alli who was mentally okay, physically right, then you've got a very good player in your hands, and one that could come in and maybe fill that void to an extent. I don't think he's exactly the same type of player as Matt O'Reilly. I think Matt O'Reilly is probably a bit more
dynamic,
cultured on the ball, with his passing and stuff like that. I think Dele Alli's more of he likes that sort of late run into the box. I was going to say he's more of a goal scorer, but Matt O'Reilly's numbers were outstanding last season. Listen, if we could get Dele Alli and he could do what Scott Sinclair done, then absolutely he could come in and fill that void for Matt O'Reilly. But I really can't see that happening. I think there's too many variables going into that deal to get him to the level that we would need him at straight away.
Fair points. I thought it was just an interesting one for Stephen Ray. He's kind of went away into the wilderness as Dele Alli. He was like the wonder kid at one point, and I actually seen somewhere about Bellingham's stats, and Dele Alli's stats at his age. He had more goals, more contributions, all that sort of thing. So I thought it was interesting. But the caveat kind of takes us into the next topic, which is the big rumours this week that Brighton were holding talks with Celtic about Matt O'Reilly. Gavin, and I think you said yourself that you're 90% sure that he's going to be off ski this window. Do you think that... I think that the rumours were 25 million plus add-ons or that. Do you think that's what Celtic's valuation are of Matt O'Reilly, 25 million? And if we get that, it's just a matter of he's gone. And also just to sort of flip the coin in that, obviously Celtic are in such a good position financially. For me, Matt O'Reilly is going to be absolutely pivotal this season, and I think I know what the answer is. What you're going to say if we do get a 25 million offer, whether he's going to go or not. But to us and the club, especially the position we're in, and the season we're going into in the Champions League, especially, Matt O'Reilly is going to be pivotal. To me, Matt O'Reilly's worth far more than another 25 million in the bank to us this season. What do you think? And your sort of valuation, because I keep saying, I know Brendan said it in his presser again today that he won't be going unless the valuation's met. What do you think that is? Do you think that 25 is going to do it?
Yeah, I think if we get close to 25, 20 would be rejected. I think if we get close to 25, certainly 25 with add-ons, he'll be gone as long as he wants to go. I think we're going to base ourselves as a trading model type club, which is what we have been doing, then this is the optimum time to sell a player. Is his value going to get any higher right now? He's almost kind of reached a crossroads anyway from a professional point of view, in terms of he was our best player last season, but yet he still get knocked back from the national team, who had the Euros there, despite the clamour in his own paternal country for bringing him on board. He still get knocked back from the manager because of the snobbery of looking down upon our league. I think we would all agree that he could have done a job as a squad player, at least for Denmark. But that's a crossroads that he's at right now. He's known that, and we're lucky to have such a player with such an exemplary attitude that he's not throwing the toys at the pram, that he's taking on the captain's armband in pre-season games and things like that, that he's doing the job in the opening game of the season. He's got a brilliant attitude, and we're lucky to have such a role model for the other players to look up to who are maybe younger than him. But although he's not kicking the toys at the pram, he will be looking at what's on the horizon right now. So I think from as I said, from our strategy, from how we make money, yes, we're right to sell if the right offer comes in. For him, he'll only go if the right club comes in for him. There's a rumour that he would only want Champions League. That makes things difficult. There's also a rumour to say that he would rather go to the continent rather than play in England. And that's a fair assumption as well. The only kind of fear that I've got is that the big money is from the English clubs. Even the shitty English clubs, they've got the big money. Whereas people at even Juventus, for example, Italian clubs don't throw around selling money like that. They don't have the same type of money as what the English clubs can offer. And if you talk about valuations, like Conor Gallagher there just left Chelsea for 33 million. He's an England internationalist. He's playing for Chelsea in the first team. He played in the Euros as well. So we talk about that English international tax that you get if you're that caliber of player. People might not be able to say that Conor Gallagher is a much better player than Matt O'Reilly. But if he went for 33, think of a Spanish club shelling out 25 million for Matt O'Reilly. Maybe that might be a stretch too far from clubs on the continent. So I think the big money will come from England, but I've got a fear that Matt O'Reilly might not want to go to a club like Brighton, who have just changed their manager, De Zerbi. They got rid of Potter left. They brought in De Zerbi. But what if the magic is gone? What if they don't replace him? I'm trying to think of who they brought in. They brought in a new manager. It's escaping me right now.
Ex-St. Pauli manager.
Yeah, a very, very young manager.
Mm-hmm. He's about 32 or something, aye.
What if he doesn't have that Midas touch? You know, Matt O'Reilly wants to be playing under a 32, a guy who's younger than us, you know? Not that we'd be better than him, but you know what I mean? I think age and experience talks a lot, being able to handle egos and stuff like that. What if it doesn't work for Brighton this time and Matt O'Reilly is getting scepticism about that? I think it's the right time for us to sell. We're not going to probably get a higher price if we keep him for another year. But Willie, I totally agree with what you're saying. If we kept him, he won't throw the toys at the pram. If he stayed for another season, that would benefit us so much, especially in Europe. And we constantly lack that. A lot of the times going into these Champions League group stages, we lose our best player or one of, and it sets us back. That's just kind of what we're used to. At the same token, I'm sorry for dragging this out. What we're going to do with 25 million? Genuinely, what are we going to do with it? We don't need it, but
yeah,
what we're going to do with it? That's we're not going to spend it. We're not going to spend it.
Yeah.
So that's me.
That was my exact point. I think for me, Matt O'Reilly's far more important than another 25 million in the coffers that we're not going to spend. Ross, what's your thoughts on the sort of same question? Do you think the 25 million is the valuation? What's your feelings on? Do you think you'll go? And also, I'll come back to Gavin on this as well, but like your thought, we've kind of touched on it already, but your thoughts on a replacement for him? Like, we've already talked about the certain positions that we feel that we need to strengthen in, i.e. that left centre-back position, a left-back, even another striker, if Idah even comes in. Do you think that, because that should be fully focused at the moment, and if Matt O'Reilly goes late in the window, it's even worse for us. Do you think that Bernardo's going to be that replacement, and that's what Celtic are thinking? What do you feel about it? Do you think that we've so focused on the stuff that we're needing to strengthen now, and we've left it that late in the window, that if he does go, we're going to be up shit's creek about with regards to replacing him?
I would like to think and hope that Celtic have a contingency plan in place if Matt O'Reilly goes. In terms of Matt O'Reilly leaving the club, I think everything Gavin has said, I think he's absolutely nailed it. I fully agree with him. I watched Brendan Rodgers' press conference today, and similar to what Gavin said is what I read between the lines. And I think that Matt O'Reilly, it's clear to see he hasn't thrown the toys at the pram. I think there's been a conversation between Matt O'Reilly and certainly Brendan Rodgers. I don't know if it's went any higher than that, but I think that there's been a conversation there, and that Matt O'Reilly has said that if the right club, I'm not pushing for a move. I love being here. I love playing under you. I love playing for Celtic. It's a massive club. I've got Champions League football. He's very happy and settled here, and he's only 23. So he's got about, I think Brendan Rodgers alluded to it in a presser last week as well, that he's got about 12 years still at the top level. I think there's been a conversation had where Matt O'Reilly said, I won't angle for a move, I won't throw the toys out the pram, but if the right club comes in for me and it marries up with the valuation that you guys have for me, then I will go, because it's life-changing money. I think Gavin makes a great point that he maybe doesn't want to play in England unless it is that top-level club that can offer him Champions League football. But I think that Celtic's valuation will be in the region of 25 million. I think that will get him out of the club, but I don't think that Matt O'Reilly will want to go to a Brighton for all the reasons that Gavin has stated, and the fact that Brighton aren't able to offer Champions League football. I think the right club has to come in for Matt O'Reilly to go, coupled with the fact that they need to meet the valuation. So there's a lot of things that need to marry up for the deal to go through. I'm similar to Gavin. I think because of all the variables and all the things that need to marry up, I think I'm sitting at about maybe 85-90% that he'll go, rather than the 100% that I was before. But I think if the deal is going to happen, no, I know. If the deal is going to happen, I think it needs to happen sooner rather than later. But the problem is the team that will sort of turn Matt O'Reilly's head, if for want of a better phrase, might leave it late, and that is not good for Celtic. If it's left to the last week, I think Celtic should say, no, you're not going now. It's impossible to replace you. We don't need the money. You're happy here. And I think Matt O'Reilly would be quite happy with that as well. I think if the right club and the right deal happened this week, then it would go through. But I think after this week, I think that is over the sort of precipice. And I think that doesn't give us enough time, albeit we've brought Bernardo in, and I know James has said on a number of occasions that he thinks Bernardo will be the replacement. I wouldn't put it by Celtic for Bernardo to be the replacement, and I think he has got a lot of good qualities, Bernardo. But Gavin said it earlier, we can't bring in a player of the level of Matt O'Reilly right now, but the level of Matt O'Reilly when he came in is what we have to be looking at.
Yeah.
I don't think Bernardo's at that level right now. So we absolutely have to be looking at somebody else if he goes. But I'll say it again, after this week, a push next week, if the deal isn't done, then they have to knock back all offers. And I think Celtic will, and I think Matt O'Reilly will be quite happy with that, knowing that if he turns in the same level of season, the numbers that he produced last season, this season, and he performs how he did, even if Celtic fall short again, which, I mean, even if they done unbelievable business in the next couple of weeks, they still might fall short at that level of football because it's so difficult. But if Matt O'Reilly performs the way he did last season, then he will absolutely get his move, and he'll have a good number of years in front of him to still play at a top level club in the Champions League and show everybody what the qualities that we all already know that he possesses.
Well, you see how you're saying that, Ross. I totally agree. We see what you're saying that about the sort of top level in the Champions League. I think he's absolutely vital to us there this season. I think he could be the difference between us having a successful campaign and us being absolutely ranked rotten. Would you agree with that?
100%, I would agree with that. Listen, and I've said earlier in the podcast that I think at this point of the season now, albeit we're weaker in numbers, I think we're a better team than we were, and we are a better team going into Champions League football, regardless of the business we do between now and the end of the window. Listen, touch wood that we do business, but if we didn't do business and we went into Champions League with the team we have now, it wouldn't be ideal, but I still think we're a better team. If we manage to keep everybody fit, we are a better team and we're better prepared for the Champions League this season than we were last season, because we went into the Champions League last season and we didn't have Rio Hatate. We didn't have Carter Vickers, I think, for large periods. So, as much on paper, but at that time, we were weaker than we are now in numbers because of injuries and that sort of playing under Brendan Rodgers for a year. We've started, you can see it towards the tail end of last season, and then we've carried it on into the pre-season. In the first game of the season, we're a far better drilled football team now than we were at this time last year, and that gives me confidence. And of course, like you've said, Matt O'Reilly is integral to that, because he was the guy that provided the assists and played the tailing passes in some of the games, certainly the home games where we got our goals, albeit we didn't get wins. Well, we beat Feyenoord, but it was sort of it was a bit too little too late, if you like, but he provided the assist there. They provided the assist for Kyogo in the Atletico game, and that goal, by the way, wouldn't have been out of place in anywhere, any stadium in Europe that week or any week. So he is absolutely integral to that. You make a great point. He is the man that can sort of open up a defence and provide an assist for a Kyogo, hopefully an Idah, if he's going to be coming in the door. He's the man. He's the one that can do that. If we lose him, it makes it more difficult, albeit I think we're a better team now, but we've not got that guy that can open up the back door of a team in the blink of an eye. So, he is integral to us doing a lot better in that competition than what we have done previously.
Yep, absolutely. Gavin, just kind of touch. I know you talked about the rumour about him not necessarily wanting to go to England. We know Atalanta had, I think there was an official bid from Atalanta, is that right? I think it was like 14, 15 million or something that we knocked back. Stephen Ray says here, and I've seen this news myself, that Juve are about to sign Atalanta's Coop Miners, for 50 million plus. The players down tools to push the move. That's slightly worrying. If they've got the cash to burn then and they can get Matt O'Reilly for half the price that they've just sold Coop Miners for, that would be slightly worrying. Italy could be somewhere he wants to go to. Their Champions League, I believe, I think they won the Europa League last year, didn't they? So they'll be in the Champions League. I don't know where they finished in the league. That could be worrying, because that could be a potential destination for them, because we know they're definitely interested. What's your thoughts on that?
So Atlanta, they put in two bids. It was roughly about, 12, 13, 14 million. They had a bid rejected, and then they increased it by a very, very small increment, which is probably the way that we were fanning about with Idah a couple of weeks back, with Norwich, for like 4 odd million, I think, and then we raised it up to a slightly higher amount. Look, if Italy's his destination, then brilliant. I would genuinely watch him in Italy to see how he does. I would follow that, but for the money, from what I've heard so far from Atalanta, is nowhere near the amounts that we need, the bare minimum that we would need. So we'll watch that space. I would be surprised if Atalanta come in with 25 million for him. See, the other thing, like, I know that I've been saying 25 million quite a lot. There are a lot of Celtic fans on Celtic Podcast and in the comments tonight who are quite adamant that it has to be the 30 million mark. I'm not bothered about that, because personally, I don't see it happening. but a lot of people are sticking to their guns about it. I wanted to get your thoughts because Tierney went for 25 million, I believe it was, to Arsenal, and that was roughly correct me if I'm wrong, roughly about 5 years ago, give or take, yeah.
5 years, bang on, aye. Just a couple of days ago, I think.
If you factor in inflation, so Matt O'Reilly is one of the best midfielders that we've had at Parkhead for, I don't know, going back to, tell me if you disagree, Stelian Petrov, for example. Maybe he's even better than Petrov. Different type of player, more elegant, but a passer. But if we factor in inflation and then we look at the headlines over the last day or so, Spurs have agreed 65 million for Solanke.
Solanke, I've seen that.
Who's had one proper good season in the EPL. Yesterday, I think it was 80-odd million for Julian Alvarez, the Manchester City second striker, going to Atletico Madrid. So if you factor in inflation, those kind of points, and the fact that Tierney went 5 years ago for 25 million, I know that you want Matt O'Reilly to stay. You recognise we don't need the money, but if he was to go, would you be disappointed if it was less than 30 million? Are you strong on that? Me, I'm kind of relaxed. I don't really care if it's 25 or 30.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never really been one that's been that fussed about fees or whatever. I'm more of, I was gutted when Tierney left. That was, other than like Larson and possibly Hooper, Tierney was the other one that I was absolutely devastated when he went. And it wouldn't have mattered if it was 50 million or 25 million. I would have still been gutted. And it's similar. I don't get so fixated on prices, much like in the incomings as well. Kyogo's been a fantastic buy. Hatate's been a fantastic buy. I think Kyogo was what, 3 million? If we paid 15 million for him, I wouldn't have cared. I just want quality in the team. So yeah, for me, the fee doesn't. It's not a massive. Obviously, you want to get as much as you can for him, and I can understand the board and the club holding out for that. And you make great points about the sort of inflation. If we're selling a KT for that 5 years ago, then we should be expecting more. And in the modern game, if Matt O'Reilly was at a Crystal Palace or an Everton, for example, putting up the numbers he's putting for us, he would most certainly go for double that. Like you say, Solanke's had one good season, gone for 65. Matt O'Reilly would be going for double what we are saying that what we think the limit is. So I can totally understand what people's points in regards to that. But for me, I don't care. I would much rather be kept hold of the player than go, even if it was 40 million. I would much rather be kept hold of the player. But that's just me. I don't know if that's just But I
take it you're not an accountant by trade.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. You seem fairly relaxed about numbers there.
What about you, Ross?
Well, similar to you, I'm no too hangway on the pricey player as long as the player's quality that we're bringing in. But in terms of the Matt O'Reilly one, I think, obviously, I totally agree that I would rather keep Matt O'Reilly than sell him for 25-30 million pound. But sort of the way Gavin's asking, I agree with him in the sense that, well, I know you're saying 25 million. I would accept 25 million with add-ons, which is the sort of reported one for Brighton. I think I said months and months ago that I thought Matt O'Reilly was worth 30 million pound, and I was basing it off the Kieran Tierney sale for all the things that you said. 25 million for Kieran Tierney 5 years ago, the rate of inflation. I think also on top of that, I think that Kieran Tierney was a left back, and yes, that position has changed over the years, and they do affect the top end of the pitch a lot more than they used to. But for me, Matt O'Reilly is a creative midfielder. He is the guy that plays your striker in, sets up goals, gets you goals. He gets you a lot more goals than a Kieran Tierney would have. For me, to be looking at 5 million more for Matt O'Reilly than what you got for Kieran Tierney 5 years ago, I don't think it's unrealistic. I know a couple of Hearts supporters, and I said to them ages ago that Matt O'Reilly was worth 30 million at least, and I was laughed out the door. But he absolutely is worth that. Whether we get that is another story. But Brendan Rodgers has reiterated time and time again that they will be paying for the player, not the league. And I love that, because we've never heard that for the club before. It's always been, we'll have to be low-balled, if you like, because the league he plays in, he's not proven himself at that top level. But he's got Denmark caps. He's proven himself in the Champions League. He's proven himself in this. Listen, he's came from MTK Dons and made that step up. Matt Riley, for me, is a £30 million footballer, and then some. But if we get 25 million for add-ons, I would accept that. But again, I don't want to see Matt Riley go, especially at this stage of the window. If we keep him for another year and he has another go at the Champions League, and we sell him earlier in a window, and we've got somebody maybe in January knowing that he's going to go, because we know that he's going to go. Whether Celtic will do that is another story, because we knew Joe Hart was going to go and we left it ages and we didn't. We've ended up having to go with Kasper Schmeichel, albeit it's a great sign. He's not been recruited. But I'm sort of going off on a tangent there. But I think Matt Riley is worth £30 million and then some.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. Pretty much everybody in the comments is saying they don't want him to leave either. So they're obviously of the thinking that we've got plenty of money and we're not spending it. So what's the point in getting another 25-30 million for him if we don't do anything with it? Hopefully it doesn't go, because for me.
No, I was just going to say, listen, I totally get that point. What's the point in selling him for that? But I'll go back to what I said, how I've read it, that Matt O'Reilly he won't stay at Celtic forever. He's too good to just keep playing his trade in Scotland.
Yeah.
For me, there's been a conversation had where if the right club comes in, he'll go.
Yeah.
He's going to leave Celtic at some point. So it doesn't matter about what's the point in getting the money. The fact is that the player is going to go at some point and we have to get the best deal possible.
Mm-hmm.
What we do with the money is irrelevant after that.
Yep, agreed. And that comes down to like what Gavin's saying about the fee. And I'm no accountant, but like the length of contract and all the rest of that, as well as obviously a factor in the fee we're going to get. So another year on, might not get that fee if he doesn't have as good a season. So I do understand that, but yeah, hopefully we all hope that he stays. That, for me, that midfield three that we've got at the moment would walk into most teams in the English Premier League as a midfield three. I think the dynamism and the way they're working, and on Sunday they were electric. Absolute liquid football with Hatate back in full flow again as well. And I really think that if they stay together and stay injury free, we could have a good go in Europe this season. So fingers crossed. But next, we're back in for Big Idah. Talking about fees, Gavin. I think they're saying that 8 million was rumoured, but it's probably more 6 million with add-ons, all the rest of that sort of stuff. How do you feel about that? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, well, in our group chat especially, there's a lot that say they wouldn't go over a certain amount.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? What would you pay for? What would you pay for Adam Idah?
Right. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you on the podcast because see the conversations in the group chat. I think you could argue until you're blue in the face about it, but it's eager to actually talk about it diplomatically on the podcast. Now, every player is there comes a certain point where you don't go above a mark, above a fee. Okay. Now, yes, we know, and everybody in the world knows, we've got money to burn right now. But we as Celtic fans know that we're not burning that money. We're very frugal. So Adam Idah, we want him. Brendan Rodgers wants him. So the fee, apparently it's 6 million with add-ons. Whether that takes you up to 7 or whether it takes you up to the rumoured 8, I can live with that. But is he an 8 million player? No, I don't think so. But would I be willing to part with Adam Idah at this stage in the transfer market where we've been backed into a corner? Yes, I would. Just get it over and done with because he ticks a box. He is completely different from Kyogo. Don't need to spell out to you or the viewers. You're just as educated as me on that matter. Totally different from Kyogo. He offers something different. I don't think he's the second coming of Jesus Christ, because there was times at Parkhead where he was running about like a headless chicken. It's happened to better players than him. There are times where you look silly in games, and I felt that he excelled in the away games whenever we were up against like some pressing teams like Kilmarnock. Sometimes you have to dink it over them and he'd be able to hold it up. And what he offers, Kyogo doesn't offer. So I'll go no further than that. In terms of the fee, if it's 6 million plus, 8 million tops, I can live with it. At the start of the window, I would have been quite vehement that 8 million is not the type of money I would shell out for Adam Idah. But the fact is that this is dragged on week after week as a saga. And we're now here. We've already started competitive football. I said it earlier on. We're about to start Champions League at the beginning of September. If we leave it too late, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So if it's 6 million plus with add-ons up to 8, go for it. Do it. But if this wasn't the price for Adam Idah and it kept dragging on and we ended up having to go to 9 million, Adam Idah is not a 9 million player. Not in a million years. He's not a 9 million player. He spent half a year with us and he did very, very well. But Kyogo, we know Kyogo's a fantastic player, but the way that we were set up, the way that things were just not, as you spoke, what was it, liquid football? The liquid football wasn't working for Kyogo at that moment, but Adam Idah, just that was the right thing for the equation. It worked. I don't know if it'll work quite as well next season if we get Adam Idah, but we need to take that risk. But more than 8 million, no, not for me. Eventually, you keep adding it on, saying, "Oh, what's a half a million? What's a half a million?" But eventually, it comes a point to say, "No, you're taking the piss now." So everybody's got the limit. 6 with add-ons for me, yeah, I can live with. And then there's the other option: do we need a third striker? But I'll leave that to. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that's my penny's worth.
What's your thoughts on it, Ross? Because I think, for me, again, this goes back to me. Like I said, I couldn't give a fuck if I paid 15 million or 1 million for Kyogo. I just want quality in the door. So for me, I don't see what Adam Idah could have done more last season. I understand why people say he shouldn't be worth more than X, Y, and Z, but I don't see what more he could have done last season to prove that he. Well, obviously we all want him in the door, but to even pay that money for him, I don't know if it's because. I don't believe this is Gavin's thoughts, by the way, that it's because he's from the Championship, not Norwich, and he wasn't a first-team player for them, that people kind of think that way. I believe Gavin bases it on what he's seen last season, but I don't know if other people do that, and if it was, for example, because he's still young, what is he, 22 or something like that, 23? For some people I've spoke to, I just get the feeling that if he was an unknown Brazilian from fucking Sao Paulo that we got on loan last year and did what Idah done, people would be screaming out to pay whatever for him. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it? I know you're the same kind of feeling where there's a fee you think that we should be paying for him and you shouldn't go any more than that.
When Adam Idah first came in, there was a big furore. He was the Norwich third striker and all the rest of it, and it was no good enough, right? And it was a loan deal, and it wasn't what we wanted. We wanted a permanent signing in. But I said at the time, if he came in and he got between 6 to 10 goals, it would have been a good loan signing. He would probably help us get over the line in the league. That transpired, and he turned out to be a good signing. But in that period, at the start, what I seen in Adam Idah, much like Gavin, I thought there was moments where he did run about like a headless chicken. He faded in and out of games, but at the end of it all, he can fade in and out of games, but he scored goals in big moments in big games. And I did say at periods of his loan spell that I think the fact that he scored in big moments, it made him look a better player than what he was. But in the end, at the end of his spell, he did win me over, and I think he's a more than decent player, and he's a totally different option for Kyogo. We absolutely need that because we've been lacking that since Giakoumakis left, and we tried to sort of replace Giakoumakis with albeit I thought he had no bad. Are you still with us, Wally? By the way,
Aye. I just looked.
I thought you'd froze there. I thought I was on my own there. Aye, albeit came in and he was. We'll say that word. We've said it a million times. Raw. But he was, and
He just wasn't that
it
goal
turns
scorer,
out,
was he?
no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. But Adam Idah has come in, and he's been that presence, that big, strong target man. And that's doing him a disservice because he's not just a target man, because he can take the ball in and he can run with it, and he's good with the ball at his feet for a big guy, and he knows where the goals are. He absolutely does, and he's won me over. But I'll just echo what Gavin says. I won't convey it as well as Gavin does, but he's absolutely, for me, he's not a £9 million player. I totally agree with that. I think £6 million with add-ons I can live with. But at this stage of the window, I don't think we've got. I really don't. Listen, I hope we have. If it doesn't go well with Adam Idah, but we've seen it before. I think it was maybe James that alluded to it in the last podcast, and that we chased Eddie Howe for so long, and then he knocked us back. Adam Idah's not going to knock us back, but Norwich might, if we don't probably pay through the nose. I couldn't live with £9 million. I don't think he's a £9 million player, but at this stage of the window, if we have to go to £9 million, knowing that probably we haven't got a contingency plan in place, unless it's this Fitzgarden or however you say it, even at that, I don't think this Fitzgarden is going to be the level that Adam Idah would be. Adam Idah has already proven himself in a Celtic jersey. I don't think he's £9 million, but I would even stretch to that at this stage just to get another striker, a player that we know what he can do in a Celtic jersey. I think you start going double figures, it's getting into the realms of just absolute madness for Adam Idah. But listen, we need another striker. Norwich know we need another striker. If Celtic haven't got a backup plan to Adam Idah, then it's shocking. It's just not big club mentality. They should have, and I hope they do. But for me, I totally agree with Gavin. £6 million with add-ons I can live with. 9 million at this stage of the window. If we have to pay that, I would go just do it, because we need Adam Idah in the door. We need another striker. 10 million, fucking asthma attack.
I'm getting a few comments, it's obviously because of my opinion on it. Anton Rogan's left foot, evening Anton, said, if he didn't score in the final, would you say this? I'm getting a few comments like that. And yeah, I would. For me, if we didn't sign him in January, I don't think we would have won the double. I think there's games, that Motherwell game sticks out in my mind in the league, where he pulled us out a hole. He came on and absolutely Hibs as well. Yeah, there's and obviously the cup final to boot. I just think that going into the Champions League as well, that for me, and I am a massive Kyogo fan, but I think that Idah, like everybody knows and says, is a different threat, and he could be arguably more important to us in the window. And in the modern game, when we think, was the final figure we got for 4 million?
Aye.
Because if it was Adam Idah's worth 100 million.
I mean,
Solanke,
that's fair.
They're like, people are saying Solanke's 60 million, Stephen, and again, Idah's easily 8 million. Just for me in the modern game, I don't see, if we did have to go to 9 or even 10, I don't see the issue. I think he couldn't have done more in his loan spell, and I would be, as everybody has, I don't think anybody's disagreeing, and would be delighted to see him back. Brown Warriors in as well, saying we need a strong number 9 who can hold it up and play with his back to goal to bring other players into it. That's exactly what we're talking about. Is a different aspect in what Kyogo offers. And Gavin, I think I don't really like to talk about that. I just wanted to make a point about the sort of fee, but I don't like talking about it because it sounds like it's a negative, but it's not, because everybody wants him in. Everybody wants him in the door. Everybody was absolutely buzzing to see what he did for us last season, and everybody wants him in the door. And I think the best thing about it, Gavin, and I know it's dragged on a bit, but when he does come in, he doesn't need to settle, because he's obviously been here and done it all the last 6 months or whatever. But it's going to be a bit like this Bernardo signing, whereas we should all be buzzing that we've got a top striker in the door, and we're not. It's just going to be a bit of a deflated, thank Greg's, we've got him in, and that's it.
Yeah. So to turn that potential negative into a positive. I think a lot of people underestimate the benefit of familiarity. So, although this is primarily an Ange team in terms of recruitment, Brendan Rodgers has worked with them last season, and there was times where we looked crap, where we're playing crap. We with the playing style on the pitch, there was an animosity from the fans and the crowd, and despite that adversity, the players pulled through, and they really delivered come the business end of the season. And now we're back again, start of this season, and we've not lost our best players. We've not lost the players that we've depended on to win us the league. And I guess the positive of that is that another season strengthening those relationships, with the fact that people have gained confidence, the likes of Liam Scales, who is much maligned, but the fact that he's came back, players like him, who've gained confidence, who now can regard themselves as a key player of the squad, who can regard themselves as being valued and saying, this League Cup winners medal, I earned it. I wasn't a bit part player. I earned it. And I think one more season with these guys playing with each other, bringing back your Bernardos, bringing back your Idahs, they know each other, and you saw in the pre-season games playing against the likes of Chelsea and Man City, it's because they already knew each other's movements and things like that. That we can underestimate that. Whenever you have a big upheaval, you lose a lot of players. You bring in a raft of players. It takes time to settle. Takes time to build those relationships. We've already got that in place. So if we were to kind of turn that pessimism into a benefit, we've not really lost out, despite the apathy that I've got about the lack of genuine quality coming in. These players have ran the course, and they can do it again, at least domestically. They can definitely do it again domestically, the way that we are right now. But of course, for Europe, we want to strengthen. That's a given.
Yep. Yeah, it's great debate in the chat, guys. Thanks very much for your comments. There's lots of. I'd love to see what other people feel about it. It's fairly 50-50 about people saying they wouldn't pay X amount, and others would say, yeah, he's definitely worth 9-10 million. I just think it's fascinating. But we're going to move on from all the transfer sagas. You'll be glad to know until Monday, where we'll talk all about it again. And the other big news today, Gavin, I'm going to come to you first because you've got a different opinion on the Scotland national team, but our captain retired from international duty today. I thought it was quite a surprise when it came out the woodwork. I didn't see that coming. Obviously, it's a massive benefit for Celtic. But what did you make of the news when it came out? Was it a surprise for you as well?
I think whenever you stand back and think about it, Calum McGregor just turned 31 at the end of the summer. So the next major tournament, he will be 33. Calum McGregor, you might disagree with me, but he's already reached his peak, okay? He's slowly on a decline. Starting off at a very, very high position anyway, okay? So it's not as if we've got a bad player on our hands. So from an international point of view, does Calum McGregor think that he can really, really benefit Scotland at the age of 33 whenever a new tournament comes around? By making this decision right now, it's benefited Celtic and Celtic fans and Brendan Rodgers, of course. It takes away the distraction of international football. It takes away adding more and more fixtures upon quite a grueling football calendar as a professional these days anyway. And if you think about it, with the added games that you've got with the Nations League and the Nations League qualifiers and all that stuff, which I'm still trying to grasp, trying to disentangle myself, but all it means to me is a lot of international games clogging up the calendar. I've never been a fan of whenever people trot out that stat that Calum McGregor was one of the players who played the most games ever as a professional footballer in the footballing calendar. And people thought that was a good thing. I remember debating with one of my friends about it, and I'm like, but that's miles on the clock. I spoke about it like a boxer analogy, like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury perhaps has not fought that many fights compared to other people, but that trilogy that he had with Deontay Wilder took a lot of miles off the clock. And I think with the fact that that's probably a bad analogy, actually. But what I'm trying to say is that Calum McGregor, although that Calum McGregor played a lot of games in many, many years for Scotland and for club, and he wasn't injured. He was always reliable. I was always quite wary of that. Although he was never injured, that's going to take time off your future. That might be a deciding factor between retiring at the age of 37 and retiring at the age of 34, for example.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of that being a brag-worthy stat. So he's made this decision. He's taken out a lot of fixtures from the football calendar for himself. He's going to be able to recover more during these international breaks. And Calum McGregor at the age of 31 right now, I think he needs that. I think that Scott Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he did at a similar age as a Celtic fan. I know he reversed his decision because the midfield.
England.
I think the midfield needed him. A couple of years later, whenever Scotland were on the periphery of qualifying for an international tournament, I know that they came up short, but Scott Brown did reverse his decision. He played a few
went back for a bit. Aye.
Went back for a bit, never worked out, and then he retired again. But I think with the Scotland midfield, and you guys are more knowledgeable about this than me, you've got McGinn, you've got McTominay, you've also got Lewis Ferguson, who he won the best midfielder award in the Serie A. I know that some of us are not fans of him, but I'm sure Lewis Ferguson is due his time in the international fold. So Calum McGregor's probably looking at it to saying, look, I'm going to be 33 in 2 years whenever the next tournament is due. I will step out and let other people step into that fold. So I think it benefits the international team, and it benefits Celtic. And I think he still operates at a high level anyway. Right now, he's not a bad player. But as I said earlier on, I think his best days are behind him. But from a Celtic point of view, and I might be accused of digressing right now, but I think we need to think of a succession plan for Calum McGregor as a midfielder and as a Celtic captain. But overall, surprise whenever I heard it, but whenever you think about it, I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, there's some fair points there, Ross. I think it's valid in what Gavin's saying. I think he's even the last 2 years. I think, like I say, before then, like Gavin said, before then, it seemed like he was never injured. But the last 2 years, he's had 2 or 3 decent injuries that's kept him out for a length of time, and maybe that was in his thinking. You're like me, I love the national team. It's a big blow for a national team. With Celtic head on, I think it's fantastic news for the club, obviously, that he's going to be readily available and get that rest that he needs. Gavin says he's not getting any younger. But it's a massive blow for a national team, and was, like me, was it a bit of a surprise for you, the announcement the day?
Massive shock. Aye, it definitely was. I personally, well, I think it's clear to see that Calum McGregor loved playing for Scotland. It was a massive shock, but once you sort of digest it and you think about it, well, first of all, from a Scotland fan's point of view, you're gutted. It's a massive player. He was integral to the way Scotland played. But then you sort of, as I say, digest it, and you've got sort of successors coming up. Lewis Ferguson, I've never rated, but you don't get that award in Italian football if you've not got something about you. I've not seen a second day playing Italian football, so I will not comment on Lewis Ferguson as a player now. But as a player at Aberdeen, I didn't rate him. I just felt he was a guy that just ran about a park and got booked all the time. But anyway, he could come in to not replace Calum McGregor, but he can possibly come in and play that deeper role. And then you've got Billy Gilmore, who can come in and sort of take on that Calum McGregor mantle, making Scotland tick. And I think he absolutely has the credentials to do that. So in that sense, as a Scotland fan, I feel you could say Calum McGregor's maybe made the decision a bit too early, but then it allows guys like Billy Gilmore to come in and be more part of the team, because Calum McGregor is, to an extent, keeping him out the team at the minute, especially when you start playing guys like Christie.
Yeah.
That Billy Gilmore's the guy that comes out of the team. But then you look at from a Calum McGregor point of view, and you go, Celtic have asked so much of Calum McGregor, the same as they did with Kieran Tierney. He's played copious amounts of football for Celtic. Never misses a game. He's played in the last 10 years probably more games than just about any player in world football. I don't even think that's an exaggeration to say that. Whether it's fact is another thing, but he's right up there with guys that have played the most amount of football. Celtic have asked a lot of him, and as Gavin says, that's miles on the clock. It takes its toll on your body over 10 years, and I think for Calum McGregor, from his point of view, I think it's a good decision for him as a player, and it will absolutely elongate his career. He's took the decision. He's probably even spoke to Scott Brown at length as well, and took that decision on the advice or just having a chat with Scott Brown anyway. So from Calum McGregor's point of view, I think personally, Gavin said that his best years are past him now, and they absolutely are. But Calum McGregor's a different player now from what he was 10 years ago. Of course, he's more experienced, but he's playing a different role in the team. He's the captain, and he's playing deeper. But he's still got a lot to offer. The start of last season, I felt, and listen, it was maybe a fitness thing, I don't know, but I felt that Calum McGregor had lost maybe half a yard towards the end of last season. I felt he'd got it back, and he for all the world still looks the same player again now. But this, then you look at it from a Celtic point of view, as a Celtic fan with your Celtic hat on, it's a great decision for a Celtic fan and for Celtic, the club, because as Brendan Rodgers had said in his press conferences today, it gives him that downtime that he would never have had, because he was playing every single game for Celtic. The only way he missed a game is if he was injured, and you said, well, he was injured a couple of times last season, and we did, and even the season before that, albeit it wasn't due to like maybe wear and tear, he'd got a broken jaw, but he's 31 now. Celtic are still going to ask him to play every single game that he's available, and Calum McGregor will make himself available for every single game as long as he's fit. So you expect him to play in the region of 50 plus games again this season at 31. It's a lot to ask him, and with your Celtic hat on, to get that time where there's more international breaks than there ever has been now, so that gives him even more downtime when Scotland are playing. It's, for me, to sum up, it's not the greatest decision for Scotland, but when you look at the guys that we've still got in the squad and the guys that could maybe come through, then it's okay. We can handle it. For Celtic and Calum McGregor, it is absolutely the right time and the right decision for his career to elongate it, and for us to keep getting the best out of Calum McGregor for a couple of more years than we maybe would if he was playing for Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. The more I thought about it today, I was sort of similar. I was more hoping the fact that he was thinking that way, and the fact that we've got, it's probably the strongest we've ever been in midfield as a national team for a long time, and he thought he sort of wanted to step aside for that and also get the benefit of obviously the rest. I was hoping it was that, and not the fact that like we got absolutely tanked in the Euros, and he thought, I can't kick it at this level anymore. That was kind of at the back of our mind. I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't believe it's so, because his mentality. But yeah, it's great news for Celtic, obviously. He's a bang on. He came off the Euros, and literally a fortnight later we were going to America. So he's getting no time at all. So yeah, it's probably best for him. 63 caps for Scotland, 7 goals. He was the heartbeat of the team for the last however many years under Clark. So it's sad to see him retire from international duty, but yeah, brilliant news for Celtic. And I'm sure he'll be pivotal for years to come for Celtic, hopefully. So,
Willie,
look ahead. Yes.
Can I add into that?
Yes.
It was about Calum McGregor. I'm sorry if for kind of prolonging it.
Not at all.
You said earlier on whenever you were talking about the Celtic midfield, and that they could walk into most English midfields in the EPL.
As a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a 3, I think they work very, very well together, and that was part of the familiarity that I was speaking of. Another year of 3 quality midfielders playing with each other. But see, Calum McGregor playing as a number 6, especially going into the Champions League, and it's not his fault, but I don't think our midfield 3 offer protection to the back line.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault, Calum McGregor playing as a number 6, because he can't get any taller, he can't get any faster or bulkier. If he does get bulkier, he'll just be like Cartman in that episode in South Park where he does the beefcake, and he's a big fat sumo wrestler and he can't move anymore. Calum McGregor can't really change his physical dimensions, and for him as a number 6, he is not a bulldozer. Neither is he a Makelele. He's not Kante. He's one of those number 6s who dictates the tempo of the passing of Celtic, dictating the tempo of the game. And I think he does it very, very well. And I think he's a brilliant captain, a brilliant player. But with him as a number 6, and without the other 2 guys in the midfield offering any kind of defensive stability, especially whenever we step up a level in class against opposition, then we get found out in terms of getting flooded in the midfield. People can run by Calum McGregor, and it's not a criticism of him. He's a great player, and he does a brilliant role that nobody else in our squad can do. But the disadvantage of him playing as a number 6 is that there's no cover for the back line. And as I said, we got overrun. And whenever we step up into the Champions League, as much as our midfield 3 are very, very good domestically, and they're capable of doing a whitewash against Rangers this season, but we will get found out because we're fixated on playing 3 in midfield. If we change the position, maybe like a 3-5-2, then maybe you could get another guy playing with Calum McGregor. I hate to say it, but we always say a Wanyama type. Surely there's other players than Wanyama, but somebody who's physical, somebody who can actually break up play, who's got physicality, who can chase after the players running back. Unless we change that, then Calum McGregor will get found out as a number 6 defensively. So it's not meant as a criticism. He's a great player, brilliant captain, but just the way things are, he will get criticised, and it's maybe not his fault. It's just the way that we set up. So, yeah.
See to come off. Sorry, Wally. See to come off the back of. No, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was actually going to go straight to you and say, because you've said for a number of years that we're missing a bastard in midfield, somebody that's just going to kick boys up and down and be that. So I was going to come to you and say that it's fair points that Gav's making. I think you're probably the similar ilk, but for me, it's like, who do you drop at that midfield 3 for it? I know what Gavin's saying, maybe try and change up the formation. But I totally understand, and because for Calmac's obviously not as physical a type of player as you would want in a number 6, but like Gavin said, alluded to, he's more the quarterback. He's more the guy that takes the ball and dictates the pace of play. But what's your thoughts on that? Because I always mind you always saying in previous seasons that we need a bit of a bastard in midfield, especially in the Champions League.
Well, I think we do, and it's sort of what you've just asked there. Sort of brings me on what I was going to say anyway. I was going to put it to like the both these, and we're talking about, obviously, if we lose Matt O'Reilly, right, we need that contingency plan or somebody to come in and replace Matt O'Reilly. So what if we didn't get a direct replacement for Matt O'Reilly and we got in that bastard, that strong physical type to come in and play that 6 role and push Calum McGregor forward again? What do you think of that?
I might get shot down by this. I don't know if Calum McGregor, he's lost a yard of pace. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we'd be better with a bastard as number 6. By the way, that bastard still needs to be able to control and pass the ball. Assuming he does. I don't know if we become a better midfield than the one we are right now. If Calum McGregor goes to number 8, there's a lot of off the ball work Don't get me wrong.
I'm talking about maybe putting McGregor into the O'Reilly role, because I think Hatate would be the number, or maybe would Hatate go into the 10 then, and McGregor be the 8? I don't know. I get what you're saying. Sorry to butt in
I could be wrong. I just think that he doesn't have the athleticism to be as effective as what he was 5 years ago as a number 8. I think he'd be upgradable if he became the number 8. Yeah.
And what about yourself on that, Wally?
I still think he's got the engine. I still think in this sort of deep playmaker role that he plays, a quarterback role, whatever you want to call it, he still manages to get forward. I know he's not the player he was 2 years ago, but I still think he could play that role. For me, if O'Reilly did go, I know everybody's kind of talking about Bernardo's the O'Reilly replacement, but if we didn't get anybody else in, for me, I'd probably put Awata in that position and put McGregor further up than Bernardo coming in. So, for me, I definitely could see him playing that role. I mean, Brendan's first tenure, he was that number 10, and all he was doing was getting goals for us. Obviously, the older he's got, the more he's kind of been dropped back by whatever managers that came in. I still think he's a quality player, and I think whatever position you put him in, he's obviously going to give his all. And I could see him in that position. I totally understand what people are saying about him in midfield, and he's kind of not got the... I don't know what the term to use is. He's not a bastard. And there is times where we've been found wanting because of that. But I think he makes up for that in what he does with driving the team. And I totally understand what Gavin's saying about domestically. It's a breeze, because for him, he just gets to dictate the game because he's got whatever space, and he doesn't get that in the Champions League. But if we kept all three, for me, I would just keep it the way it is, because I just think that the three of them work so well together that I wouldn't want to break them up. But I do understand we're going to leak goals because of that. But I think that we're also going to create goals, and he's the one to dictate the team for that position. That I wouldn't want to break that up personally.
Right. Well, see, I'm just sort of thinking there when you were talking. Like say, if when we do lose Matt O'Reilly, whether it's this window or another, right? Rather than this might be totally out there, right? But rather than replace Matt O'Reilly or try and replace Matt O'Reilly directly, because it's so difficult to do.
Yeah.
If we can bring in that type of midfielder who is athletic, strong, physical, can sit and play that holding role, if you like, but still dictate the play. I know there are a lot of qualities that are difficult to find all in the one player, but in an ideal situation, if we could get a type of player like that, I think that would maybe give us more options, in the sense that we're not replacing Matt O'Reilly directly, but we still have the option to push Calum McGregor further up the field, even in Europe, where we need that strong six, that bigger physical player in the Champions League. He could come in and play in the Champions League. If he's younger as well, he could... Once Calum McGregor, obviously he's 31 now, I'm not talking about maybe this season, but in time, we can start sort of tailing McGregor off a wee bit. We can still play this guy, whoever it may be, in the 6, but then we've got Awata to come into the 8, or in the Champions League, you'd play that guy in the 6, McGregor in the 8, and play Hatate in the 10 in Europe. It gives you that sort of option to... Listen, I'm hoping that home comes good as well, but it gives you that option to take McGregor out the team and conserve some energy domestically, and you can still have like Hatate and this new guy, and even Awata in there, or even home in that 10 and play a Hatate and the new guy. It maybe gives you more options than just... What I'm trying to say basically is it maybe gives you more options than just try to replace Matt O'Reilly directly.
Aye, makes sense. I'm trying to scratch my head now thinking about it, about that sort of bastard that we've kind of coined the term in midfield. And I'm trying to think of another one in world football at the top teams now. I just don't see that for that position. For me, the pinnacle of that position right now is probably Rodri at City in Spain. But he's not. He gets about, but he also drives the team forward, has that passing, he's always available, gets in and gets goals as well. And so I'm trying to think. I don't know if that's just a dying art.
And the Euros, like, by the way, is one of the most friendliest guys ever. But in the Euros, Kante was the bastard for France.
Mm-hmm.
He would always break up play, nick the ball off. He would do it with a smile on his face. And the kind of beguiling nature of it was, he's just a wee guy, but he's just a wee kind of like bee, buzzing about. But he's just so quick, nicking the ball off players. He was that bastard, but he just does it in such a likeable way with a smile on his face. But you've got Rodri. Rodri is one of the most physical number sixes in the world right now, but he's quite an elegant player at the same time. He can pop up with goals, he can pop up with really good passes, but he is one of the most physical number sixes out there.
I think that's the ideal thing, isn't it?
I think that number 6, sorry to jump in, but that number 6 role is much. You talk about Rodri, even Stephen said in the comments there about Xhaka, he is reinvigorated at Bayer Leverkusen, but you seen it with him. You're talking about the Euros, Gavin. Rodri, Kante, Xhaka all played that role where they were the guy that you want to. They were the one that broke up the play and started attacks like the guys back in the day, like a Makalele did, like a Jeremy, even to an extent Neil Lennon, by the way. That's what he done in the Martin O'Neill team.
He was a bastard.
But the guys now, but the guys now, they've got that. They've still got that similar dig, but they've probably maybe got a wee bit more guile. They're a bit more technical, maybe than the guys for the early noughties, let's say.
Well, these guys,
they're still doing that similar role.
These guys,
and indeed, they could do that for us, but
would break up that play, but then pass it to the boy that's technical and is going to do that. Whereas now they're breaking up the play, starting that move and getting forward to get goals as well. So ideally we want that sort of player there. And I think McGregor's got all the characteristics, but he's just not physical enough. He can't be
Absolutely.
Like Gavin said. If he builds himself out, then it can't be. So it is an interesting one, and I think Gavin's right. I think we need to start thinking about what we're going to do in 2 or 3 years' time when Calum McGregor's no longer able, and I think that is absolutely the sort of player we should be looking to get. But
that's what New Barrafield's for.
So looking ahead, a visit to the capital on Sunday. Ross, I think in Brendan's time, both times at Celtic, he's never had a decent record at Easter Road. I think it's fair to say he's got a bit of a poor record there, but it's different times now. Hibs haven't started the season well. They didn't end the season well last year. They're in a bit of transitional period, and we look to be firing. What do you think about the game, and do you think there'll be many changes to the side? And how do you think we'll go?
Well, going to the capital for Celtic is always notoriously, in fact, for most teams, it's notoriously difficult. Obviously, you get the odd game here and there where it's comfortable, but certainly Easter Road hasn't been a too happy hunting ground for Celtic, even under Brendan Rodgers. But I think the last time we went there, I think Adam Idah bailed us out, if I remember right. But again, I think we're in a better place as a team. And off the back of a 4-0 victory against Kilmarnock on the opening day, I think we're, and because of the pre-season we've had, I think the confidence is really high amongst the team, the players. So I go Easter Road with confidence, especially off the back of, I think they lost 3-0 on the opening day to St Mirren, who, by the way, are a good SPL side. And
what was their score last night? I haven't even seen the scores. How did they get on?
Did they draw?
Did they?
I'm not sure. To be honest. I'd be guessing, but St Mirren are a decent side, but they obviously put Hibs to the sword last week. But when the sort of Celtic or Rangers come to town, Hibs and Hearts up their game, I think it'll certainly be a tougher game. We'll have to probably, do a bit more defending, and Kasper Schmeichel might be called upon a bit more than what he was last week. But I still fancy us to go and get the result. Listen, any win's a good one. Maybe 2-1, 3-1 Celtic. I would expect a victory, and Hibs to have a bit of possession, a bit of attacking on our goal, but I would still expect us to be fairly comfortable on the day. In terms of the team, I'm not sure if Maedda's fit. There was no mention in Rodgers' press conference today, so I'm assuming that he's maybe still not quite ready. So I would expect probably the team to be obviously Schmeichel. Back four speaks for itself. So does the midfield three. The central striker speaks for itself. And I think you'll probably see it'll be Kuhn on the right. And I think away from home, I'd be very surprised if we went with Palmer or Yang. I think he'll probably go with Forrest again. Get us into the game, stretch the Hibs defence, and then later in the game, bring on the slow coach or bring on Yang and take the game away from Hibs at the end.
The slow coach, that's Sir James in because he's in the comments now.
Aye. He had his wee digs.
I must admit, I was very, very impressed with James Forrest last week. I'm hoping he continues that for the season. Gavin, what do you think about our? I was just saying, you're away. Obviously, Brendan's got a bit of a poor record at Easter Road in his time at Celtic in both tenures, but they've not had a great start, and we're looking decent. So, how do you feel it'll go on Sunday? You think there'll be many changes to the side, or?
No, I don't think there'll be many changes to the side. No, I think we'll keep it as it is. However, I think Ross has pointed out that it's not been a happy hunting ground for Brendan Rodgers. So obviously Hibs took a spanking by St Mirren, losing 3-0. And even in their group thing, you know, they need to qualify for the League Cup nowadays, which is I'm still trying to get my head around that. They scraped through to get top of their group, but they did actually get beat by Celtic Hearts. And so I think David Gray is already on a shaky peg. But no, it's not been a happy hunting ground for Celtic. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the effort that Hibs put in. I don't really think it's personnel. I think it's just the effort that they put in and the crowd get behind them. It's not the same atmosphere or animosity playing against Hearts in Edinburgh. But yeah, I don't know statistically if we do better against Hearts at Midlothian than what we do at Easter Road against Hibs. I'd be interested to hear about that. But
I would say so, actually. Off the top of my head, I would say so.
So I actually took a note. Celtic have won 4 of their last 15 league visits at Easter Road.
Jeez, oh.
Yeah.
That's mad.
So I don't know if we drew with them nothing each at the first visit at Easter Road last season, but certainly in Ange's, was it Ange's last time at Easter Road we get beat when Scott Bain was playing in goals. And he completely fumbled it. I don't know if that was under Ange. I think it was under Ange.
It was.
I'm pretty sure. See the one where Maeda scored an absolute screamer in the Black Cat? Was that not 2 each as well? Did we not draw?
No, we won that game.
It was like 4-1, I think, or something.
Was it?
It was like 3-1, 4-1. We definitely won that game. But by the way, what a fucking goal that was!
Oh, I know.
Aye.
Yeah. So I think we'll keep the same lineup. But I don't know if Maeda's coming back. If Maeda doesn't come back, then I think it will still be Kuhn and Forrest on the wings.
Aye.
I don't think I know Alistair Johnson came off in the second half for Anthony Ralston, but I don't think there was an injury. But we're just kind of protecting him, so I cannot envisage any changes at all. So no, we'll play a full strength team. Even if Adam Idah comes back, if we sign him on the last minute, I think we'll still play Kyogo up front. But Christ, by the way, if it's not going for us, if it's not going well for us, if Kyogo can't hold the ball up and stuff like that, and if he's not as effective as he was at Parkhead against Kilmarnock, then we might actually struggle.
Yeah, but, better struggle, aye.
Of course, let's keep in mind that St Mirren thumped Hibs 3-0, but they need a result. He will be under immense pressure, the manager. Can I just say one thing in the comments? Totally off topic. And we were talking about Calum McGregor earlier on. I think it was Brown Warrior, and he was talking about that Pirlo played and that they're using a terminology. Regista. I can't think. Pirlo did play that, and Pirlo was the tempo maker. But if you remember, they played in a diamond. They had Ambrosini and Gattuso. Calum McGregor doesn't have an Ambrosini or a Gattuso. Both were very, very physical players. He's got Matt O'Reilly and wee Hitati who like to go forward.
And also Calum McGregor, isn't he? Pirlo.
Yeah, like Pirlo, he didn't need to do that defensive thing. He played in a defensive position, but he didn't play defensively in terms of, having to outmuscle or run with markers. Calum McGregor is a totally different player, and he doesn't have the personnel to protect him. So that was my only opinion. I'm not trying to shite on your thoughts on it. But that
I agree with that, actually.
See,
in terms of see, you've talked about the game there, Gavin. You talked about obviously Kyogo if it's not working on Sunday.
What will we do?
Well, this is what I was going to ask you, right? So if it's not working, it's maybe 0-0. I've got like maybe half an hour to go or something like that, and it's. I don't envisage that it will, right? Because I think we're playing slicker, faster football than we did when it wasn't working under Kyogo, and I think we're playing more a Brendan Rodgers style, and it's starting to suit Kyogo more, and we're bringing him into the game a bit more than what we did in the early part of last season. But if it's one of these sticky games and Hibs make it difficult and we don't get that early goal and it's not working, and you're looking for that other option, right? And do you take Kyogo off, or do you keep Kyogo on, and do you maybe go two up top? Who would you go? What would you do, basically?
Right, okay. So if it comes to half time and we haven't laid a glove on them, but we're not conceding, then I would trust the process. By the way, I would trust Brendan Rodgers every day of the week. But what do we have to mix it up? Bernardo, say we've got all the possession, maybe this sounds drastic, but maybe go for a 3-5-2 and push somebody up. I don't know, bring on Bernardo, take off a midfielder, push somebody up. What wing? Palma might be a decent option to bring on. Take off a defender, bring on Palma. But in terms of, you can't
play him as a second striker,
or in the hole. But you're not going to take off Kyogo, because who have you got to replace him? So that defeats the purpose. That defeats the purpose of becoming more offensive, of mixing it up. So wingers, you've got James Forrest and you've got Kuhn playing. You have to bring on Palma and take off somebody who's not performing well, preferably a defender. But that's assuming that we've got massive possession, which we don't normally have. Normally, games at Easter Road are quite open, so maybe we need to keep our shape at the back. It's a difficult one, but at the moment we don't really have we don't have an alternative. We don't have a plan B. No, I'm not even going.
It's a difficult one. Listen, I think James Forrest could maybe come in through the middle, but I don't think he can play like that central striker in a front three. If it's not working with Kyogo, it's not going to work with James Forrest. I think if it's not working with Kyogo on his own, you have to put somebody in there with him. The quandary is who. Listen, without knowing how the game's going to go, Willie, do you know what I mean? You're not watching the game in front of you, but if it's maybe 60 minutes and it's not working and it's sticky,
I heard you when I
what
was
do
there.
you do?
I know. Unless my Idah's fit, it's difficult. Because if my Idah's fit, you stick him up top, but if he's not fit, then it's not a great place to be, and that's why we need to push through for this Idah deal as soon as possible.
I think that this is where, if it is a sticky game, albeit Brendan Rodgers isn't being helped by the board, but it's moments like that where he earns his money, and I trust Brendan Rodgers to go and do that and make the right decisions and be more tactically inept than, or is that the right word, inept, or tactically nous than any other, and he will have a plan in his head to how to change the game.
I hope
But
so.
for me,
For me,
I'm not as clued up
we
as
just
Brendan
want Michael
Rodgers.
Johnson
And
on.
going
Going
well,
by pre-season, then that's the.
I know, but I mean, it doesn't change the game. It doesn't give you that different option. It's just the same guy. I think you need to put somebody in there beside Kyogo. But listen, time will tell on that. We'll see.
Here's a point as well. I was going to raise this earlier, but thanks for joining in the comments. I hope I get this right. Adi Oladipo. Apologies if that was wrong,
Right.
but thanks for joining in. He says, bad business from those in the suits not to get an option to buy for Idah. That's what happens when you're sniffing around with 2 days left in the window. It was a point, but I'm assuming the reason we didn't get the loan to buy it was because they were touting for the 8, 9, 10 million, whatever it is that they're looking for him. That was my only thinking. What do you think about that?
I think perhaps we never even envisaged how important Adam Idah could actually be for Celtic.
Yeah,
I think we underestimated his potential. I think we thought him as a stopgap. Certainly, I did. Sometimes you're very, very guilty of judging a book by its cover, despite people saying that phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. I think we were so guilty. Like we were talking about, we were so obsessed with fucking Sidney Van Hooijdonk, who came in to apparently replace Adam Idah. And we're like, well, and we were so turning our nose up at Adam Idah, but he comes in and he does a job, and Van Hooijdonk doesn't even do a job for Norwich. How ironic football can be. But yeah, we missed the boat. We missed the boat. We never realised his potential, or perhaps I don't know. Like, back then, it was the previous manager at Norwich. The previous manager at Norwich knew Adam Idah, and he was on the periphery. Why wouldn't Norwich agree to a loan to buy option? Surely it was us who didn't initiate it. Surely it was us who underestimated his value. But that's one of the things. Like some things in football, you've got a player who doesn't look any good, but once he gets put into the frying pan, sometimes he can really thrive. Like Kieran Tierney was not not going to be the next best thing coming out of Lennoxtown. He wasn't even the best in his age group, but for some reason, out of fortuity, he got a chance. Ronnie Dyla elected him to play with the first team in training, and he really, really took to it. And nobody could have predicted that. Even Kieran Tierney couldn't have predicted that. His peers couldn't have seen that. But sometimes strange things happen in football. Once you're given the shot, you really rise to it, and that's what Adam Idah's done. And now we find ourselves in a position where we didn't get him for a loan to buy, and now we need to pay good money.
Makes you wonder, Ross. What do you think? Do you think that's the case, or do you think that it was because they were the loan to buy? The buy option would have been far like that is what it is now. Before we even knew what he was going to do in his 6 months, and they were wanting 9 million for him, so we were just like, no point. Or do you think even then they should have just put the option in just because why not? Because we're not got anything to lose anyway.
Well, I think probably the reason is when they got like a Bernardo in, I think he's been scouted and they've had a proper look at him. Whereas, and they can say, right, okay, we can put an option to buy with this amount of money on it. I think, obviously, with Bernardo, it's maybe a poor example because they had to batter them down because in the finish up, he wasn't worth the 6 million that was maybe part of the deal. But with Adam Idah, it was a Rodgers man. And I think because it was so late in the window, it was sort of last minute that maybe that couldn't get put into the deal in time. They just had to get the deal through to get that body in. It's going to get to the stage where I think we're going to hate to get Adam Idah and fucking loan again if we leave it any later. But I think that's probably a big reason why. Listen, maybe Norwich didn't want to put that in, or like you say, Willie, they've said this is what we want the fee to be, and Celtic went, well, we don't know, we've not seen him, sort of thing enough to be able to say that is what he's worth and for to put that in for us to pay that. And it might have been Norwich had even said it'll be an obligation to buy it 8-9 million, and now Celtic have said no at the time because we don't know if he's worth 9 million, and even now they still don't obviously think he's worth 8-9 million. But it's difficult to say when you're no privy to
I know.
the goings on here. You're just guessing, so it's difficult to form an informed opinion, if you like. But aye, in an ideal world, if we were bringing Adam Idah in on loan last season and we had plenty of time and it was all how we wanted it to be, and we could have got him on a loan to buy option, then it's great. But the reality is that wasn't what happened, and we're at a stage now where we need another striker. Adam Idah has proven he's selling a Celtic jersey, and we need to get him in. We need to pay a certain amount of money to get him. But I do believe that if we do have a second option to Adam Idah, then there's a number you go to, and if they want more than that, then you go to your second option, and you hope again, we're not being privy to it, that he's going to be as good as Adam Idah was and could be for Celtic. But at this stage, I don't really know what's happening with Celtic, and if we need to pay that wee bit more than even what I think or Gavin thinks for Adam Idah, then just do it. Please just do it. Just get it done. I want to have a smile on my face midweek and go, we've got a striker in, we've got another option. We don't need to worry about what the fuck we're going to do if a game's not really working for us.
Aye, absolutely.
Can I bring up a comment from Joseph Agnew, please? I'm sorry, Willie. So from Joseph Agnew, who's been a long-time contributor, so thank you again for your involvement tonight. I hope you're doing well. This is the reason the likes of O and other players are not getting game time. We can't suss out a player who's sitting on the bench. And regarding Bernardo, you're still out of hope. You hope him and Idah come in to do a job. I think it's a valid comment to say that whenever you're not getting game time, then it's difficult to gauge how effective a player will be. I think we're all guilty of making our mind up very, very quickly about Celtic players, and we can get proven wrong, or we can get proven right. I was very, very trigger happy about writing off. Christ, who was that? Who was the fullback, the defender who we brought in from Sheffield Wednesday? We brought in
John's favourite player.
He played against Real Betis in a game.
Aye.
I said
Saze Uragide.
Thank you. I totally wrote him off. And I felt a lot of people disagreed with me. I was happy to make a judgment on him so early on. There are other players like the guy who went to Stoke, Haksabanovic, who clearly had talent, but I felt that you need more than talent. You need heart. You need that willingness, and it's very, very difficult to play for Celtic. Even if you've got talent, you need a special mentality. And I don't think Haksabanovic had that mentality to kind of combine that with his talent to be a proper Celtic player. Mikey Johnson has got brilliant talent, and he went to West Brom, and he really caught a lot of headlines. But at Celtic, he just can't really do it. And whether it be the pressure, whether it be the mentality, sometimes it doesn't happen. So I think it's a great point from Joseph Agnew. It's difficult to judge players who are not getting game time. But I think we need to, at the same time, you need to balance that against giving the benefit of the doubt to the manager who sees these players day in, day out, how they do against their peers in training. And whenever the small game time that they're given in the hoops, how they acquit themselves. And like Stephen Tomlinson, who was a big advocate of I totally disagreed, but Stephen was a big advocate of and he never got that much game time. But as us, we need to win every single game. We're in 3 domestic competitions, never mind Europe, and that kind of that stops, that hampers the progression hampers the progression of youth players. But we're bringing in a guy from South Korea, and we're not going to give the guy from Lennoxtown the chance. We're going to give you the chance, but you need to acquit yourself in the small period of time that you're given. And he was lukewarm. Sometimes it looked good. Sometimes it looked very, very raw. And it's a very, very high standard. And I totally get the opinion from Joseph Agnew, but you really need to take a chance at Celtic. If you don't take a chance within the first couple of occasions, unfortunately, that's it. It's a different standard for us to other teams.
Yeah.
But that's the lay of the land.
I agree with that. See, with that, in that sense, we'll see with the likes of, I would just, for me personally, I'd trust the coaching side. He's obviously not doing it in training to show that he was of the required quality. And even when he did come on, he wasn't, for me, he just wasn't doing it. And I think you're right. It's a different beast. I mean, the likes of, you could go into world football and say the likes of Fernando Torres was the best player in the world at one point with Liverpool, but then he goes to Chelsea and he's like a complete enigma. So yeah, it works. You're bang on. It's a totally different team. It's a totally different dynamic. The expectation is off the charts. But with that, I really like what Brendan's doing this year. See with the comments, like even recently on Home, like he loves his technical ability. There's a player there, but he needs to do more, and all the rest of that. I really like that Brendan's honest about that and open in the media now, because not only it's not, he doesn't say it in a way that he's downgrading the player. I think it's really clever. And for me, if I was a player and I was hearing that, it would drive me on to show him more in training. So I think for me, Brendan's getting it spot on in that regard. At the moment, even today in his presser, he talked about getting the quality in, but he was talking about also, but we still need to give our young players that chance. And when it comes to Champions League and all that, once we get later on in the season, we need to use more of the squad. And I think these players will get their chance, whether they take it or not. It's up to them, and that's how it should be. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I was going to do a wee quiz, but I think we'll just leave it there.
Have you got one to do?
Quiz.
Gavin's got like three quarters of a line there. Well, it depends. Because I think Gavin's into this, and Celtic send out their own quiz, because I didn't have time to do one today. Did you do the Celtic quiz today that they usually send out an email?
No.
Okay, let's do the quiz in. Gavin's still got 3 quarters of a line. So,
because there'll be about 500 cunts in the comments that actually done the quiz.
So this is Celtic obviously just sent it out. So I've just taken theirs. I've just taken screenshots of that and answers. They've all got multiple quizzes. So I'll just come to you both. You can give me your answer, and you can keep the points. It's not going to be too.
So it's not shout out.
No. I'll just do it both, right. And then we can get points up at the end. But I'll come to you individually. So I'll come to you, Ross, first, and then Gavin can answer the same question. If he wants the same answer, he can. And then the next one, I'll just go to Gavin first, and vice versa. And we'll just do it that way, right? Okay. So first question, Ross. Which player made his first start in the hoops in February's vital 2-1 win at Easter Road last season? Nicholas Kuhn, Odin Holm, or Hyunjin Yang? Who made his first start in the hoops in February's 2-1 win at Easter Road? I'm thinking that's the Idah double penalty game. Is that right?
So it's Idah, Yang,
No, it's Kuhn, Holm, or Yang.
It was Kuhn.
Gavin?
I would go for Kuhn as well.
Kuhn. That's 1 point each. Well done, lads. They're not all that easy.
I thought it was hard.
Yeah, I thought that Ross had given a wrong answer, and I was compelled to give a different answer.
No. Oh, is that mind games now? So Ross might just give the wrong answer to. I see that. Right, Gavin. Which player has an assist against every Premiership side apart from Hibs? Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, or Calum McGregor?
Matt O'Reilly, Calum McGregor, or Hatate?
Or Rio Hatate. Which player has an assist against every Premiership side apart from Hibs?
I think I'm going to have to go for longevity and go for Calum McGregor here. Calum
McGregor, Ross?
Well, that was my thinking, so I'm just going to stick with that and go longevity. It has to be Calum McGregor.
Well, the answer is Matt O'Reilly.
Matt O'Reilly.
So still one each. Right, Ross, you first. The boys got off to a winning start against Kilmarnock, but when did they last lose their first game of the season as defending champions? 1969, 2007, or 1914?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yep. The boys got off to a winning start against Kilmarnock, but when did they last lose their first game of the season as defending champions? So they needed to be defending champions, lost the first game of the season. 1969, 2007, or 1914?
Try to think if they were defending champions in 2007.
You got the answers on your ceiling?
No, this is just me. I'm looking into my thought bubble. I'm going to go 1969.
Hey, meal for two, 69. Gavin?
Okay, the alternatives were 1914.
1914, 2007, or 69.
Okay, I'll break away from Ross. Okay, I know that we're on the one path. I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for 2007.
The answer is 1914.
Oh, God.
Unbelievably, the Celts haven't lost an opening game as defending champions since a 2-0 defeat away to Heart of Midlothian in 1914. Pardon me. Gavin first this time, isn't it? How many goals has James Forrest scored against Sunday's opponents, against Hibs? 9, 12, or 7?
So random that it goes 9, 12, 7.
I know. And I'm
Well, he's like the riddler of this podcast.
I got 4 out of 10 in this. So I was fucking.
Oh, well, you're beating us now.
I'm going to go for 9, 12, or 7, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll go for 9.
9. Ross?
I was going to go for 9, but I want to break away from Gavin. So I'm going to go for 9. I'm going for 9.
Everybody's guessing 9, 12. McLaughlin, Maguire, James Kennedy, Urban Culture. There's a lot for 7 in there. The answer is 7. The Wigan has 7 goals against Hibs, including a screamer to break the deadlock in the 2019 Scottish Cup quarterfinals. So what, we still at 1 each?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't get much easier, Ross. Ross,
thank God.
This is the year first. Which Hibs player is a former teammate of Paulo Bernardo? Oh no, I wish
Current
Stephen
Hibs player.
I wish Stephen was on to read these.
Alan, name you.
Google searches.
Alan Del Ferrier, Eli Yuan, or Jair Tavares. Apologies if I fucked any of them up, but Alan Del Ferrier, Eli Yuan,
Tavares.
Yeah,
he sounds more
Jair
Portuguese.
Tavares. Gavin?
Yeah, number 3, Tavares.
Yep, you're both right. Paulo Bernardo and Tavares played together for Benfica B. So 2 each. Who's it first now, Gavin?
Gavin.
How many Danish caps do Kasper Schmeichel and his father Peter have between them? Oh fuck, they don't give you much here. 234, 254, or 244?
Right, 234, 244, 254.
Aye, that's a better way to put it. Celtic haven't put it that way, but
I'll go for the lowest, 234.
234. Roscoe?
I'm going to go for the middle one.
244. So the answer is 234. So Gavin got that. Kasper Schmeichel currently has 105. And Peter had an impressive haul of 129 caps.
See, actually, I'm a tat for going the middle one because I knew it would be the low 100s and the mid. I should have thought better. Gavin's more clever.
Can I ask Ross a question during this quiz?
Why am I a dick?
Surely you have an answer for that. I don't worry, I've asked you that already.
What? Go.
Ross, I genuinely do like you. I
know, I'm only kidding, man.
What's your favourite your favourite Friends episode?
Friends episode. I knew he was going to ask that.
I don't have a favourite. They're all fantastic.
I would say. You remember in series 2, where Joey moves out and the new guy Eddie comes in, and he accuses Chandler of like stealing his fish and sleeping with his wife.
Aye.
That was my favourite episode as a child.
88 Chris.
That's really good.
Mannequin Head.
Yeah.
Right,
One of my
Ross,
favourites.
Right,
One of my favourites is when
what the fuck is going on here?
I know, but they end up watching the old video when Rachel and Monica are going to prom, and Rachel's date doesn't come, and then Ross comes. He's getting video, and he's got to come down the stairs. But then they're watching it, and Ross is like, "I'm not going to watch anymore," and he leans against the door. And then she's like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm just, oh my God, I'm away. Unbelievable.
Suspect.
Right, let's get back to getting questions.
Very.
Roscoe, when Celtic...
What is it? 3-1 to me, aye?
No, what is it? 2-1 to Gavin?
No, it's 2-1 to Gavin, aye.
No, 3-2.
Is it 3-2, is it? I'll take
Because
that.
he's both got Tavares as well, and then
So we did.
got this Michaels 3-2. Ross, when Celtic clinched the league at Easter Road in 1973, come on, you should know this. Who got the goals? Jimmy Johnson and Dixie Deans, Dixie Deans and Kenny Dalglish, or Davy Hay and George Connolly? We've got more. Mr. McLaughlin's a...
What was the
French
middle
fan.
one? Deans and Dalglish?
BB teaching Joey French is the best one. McLaughlin's in with the French.
Oh, that's a good one, aye.
What were you saying?
What was the middle one? Deans and
Dalglish. So it's
Dalglish.
Johnson and Deans and Dalglish, or Hay and Connolly.
I'm going to go Deans and Dalglish because I think maybe Deans was at the tail end and Dalglish was just coming in. But I might be totally wrong on that.
Gavin?
Can I have a repeat on the question, please?
Yep. When Celtic
No.
clinched the league at Easter Road in 1973, who got the goals? Jimmy Johnson and Dixie Deans and Kenny Dalglish, or Davy Hay and George Connolly? This was also the year Paul Maguire was born. For anybody that wants to know.
Bet Paul Maguire's got less hair than me.
I'm going to go for Deans and Dalglish.
Oh, come on, man.
You both went the same, and that is the correct answer.
So now he's still ahead of me. That's shite, Patter. He's going to do the same guesses as me. So he stays one in front.
Oh, that's why
aye.
he goes first.
Aye.
That's why he goes
Aye,
first.
that's right, aye.
So the boys
Sorry.
won 3-0 with Dixie Deans getting 2 and Kenny Dalglish getting the goals. The win clinched an 8th consecutive league title on the 28th of April 1973. So it's Gavin first now, so he can't copy you.
How many questions are left?
I don't know, there was 10 altogether.
Aye, there's like maybe 2 left.
There's 3 more.
Oh.
Ross,
Do-do-do-do-do.
what type of white are you drinking there?
It is Sauvignon Blanc, New Zealand. It's my ultimate favourite. It's for Aldi.
Is it dry? Is it sweet?
No, it's not dry. It's very sweet. I like a sweet kind of thin, if you know what I mean. Like it's not full bodied. I don't like the red that you drink. I'm not a wine connoisseur, by the way, but I know what type of white wine I like.
Gavin's trying to get us 3 years again tonight, eh?
Look,
Joseph
man,
Hackett says,
What are you on?
Hail,
The
hail.
red?
it was at that game, if I'm right. That was for 8 in a row. It was, Joseph. It was. You're right. You're bang on.
Is that Joseph in the photo?
Right, Gavin, you're first up this time.
Aldi's a vine. What was that?
Aldi is a vineyard in the Côte d'Azur. Going into Sunday's game, how many times have Celtic and Hibernian met on league duty?
Fuck off.
299, 300, or 306?
It's a complete guessing game, of course.
4 games a season for 462 years is
And Calum played in every one of them.
Yeah, I'm going to go for the maximum. 306.
306. Roscoe.
What was the options?
299, 300, 306.
Well, it's got to be an even number for a start. So it's 306 or
299 or 300.
I'm going to have to go 300 to try and draw this level, or really fuck it.
What's this, 4-3 now?
I'm going to go 300.
300. The answer's 306.
Fuck!
So, by 3, Gavin. The team's in me. You actually kicked mid-air there, eh?
Look,
You actually kicked mid-air, I can see.
There's no skill involved here. It's a complete guessing game.
Oh, I know.
The teams have faced each other 306 times in the league, with the Hoops recording 177 wins and 75 draws. Right.
I thought it was going to be a landmark number there. That's why I went 300.
Ross, which other club was Paulo Bernardo on loan at from Benfica before he came to Celtic? Feirense. Oh, that's just fucking awful. Lank Verdense. Lank Verdense. So Feirense, Lank Verdense, or Pacos de Ferreira.
I feel like Lank Verdense, if that's even how you say it, is in my head. I'm just going to go with that.
Okay, Gavin.
Can I get the options again, please, to write it down?
Feirense, Feirense.
On Google.
Lank Verdense, or Pacos de Ferreira.
I don't know. Who did Ross go for?
Aye, exactly. It's tactical.
Lank Verdense.
Lank
up.
Villaverde, is it? I don't know. I'll go for Ferreira. Ferreira sounded quite Portuguese.
Pacos de Ferreira is the correct answer.
Oh, for fuck's
13 times, gone twice. So that's one, but we'll do the last question. Just for Gav. Celtic and Hibs have met in 4 League Cup finals, but how many goals did the Hoops score in those games? I can give you the years as well, but it's probably pointless. 12, 14 or 16. Met in the 68-69 final, 72-73 final, 74-75 final, and of course the 21 and 22 final.
I'll go for 14.
14. Ross?
I'll beat anyway, but I do think it's 4. We scored 2, and then what years was it?
Yeah, the other years were 68, 69, 72, 73, and 74, 75. So
well, 68, 69, we beat them 3-1, so that's 5. And then I'm going to go 16.
16's the right answer.
Yeah.
So you brought a wee bit of thingy back there. Apologies, I couldn't.
What was it? 6-4? I got beat anyway. It doesn't matter.
Aye. Next time, I promise you, I'll do an actual quiz.
That was all right.
That was just a Celtic one. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've fell well short of the 3-hour mark. I'm sure you'll be happy. Apart from Anton, who seems to be well on it tonight. Join us again Monday for more transfer talk. Do all the good stuff. The subscribing, liking, it all really helps us. Thanks for coming on, boys. This will be my first one for a wee while. I don't know why that was the case. I wasn't on it since I 4 Euros, and then we had a wee break, and then it's just so happened that I've not been able to make it. So it's been good to be back on with the boys, chatting Celtic again. Hopefully we get a big win on Sunday. Keep the train rolling, and hopefully we bring in about 8 signings next week. Thanks, Gav, for joining us. Thank you, Ross. I hope you all have a good weekend. Hail, hail.
Well hosted, Willie. Good to have you back.
Buddy. Thanks, buddy. Hail, hail. Speak to you all soon. Cheers.